right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for taking some time out from your Sunday afternoon to join us for this important conversation. There may be others who drop in throughout the conversation, and certainly we'll welcome them along, and hopefully it won't disrupt the flow of our conversation. I want to first begin by thanking Cindy Purvis, who is on here under the name of Sarah Purvis, but that's Cindy hiding back there, and she is responsible for helping us get this event together, and so as always, I'm grateful to her for her efforts there. Later in the event, you'll be hearing from Chelsea Alcorn, who is a committee member and a campaign veteran who will be talking to everyone about how to get your name on the ballot and make sure that you stay on the ballot. And certainly, I think I want to make a special welcome to our two named guests today, Doris Gernovich, who is the president of the Corry Area School Board, and Darlene Feeney, who serves on the Erie City School Board. Darlene's colleague, Tyler Titus, is with us today as well. And so I'm going to probably put him on the spot at some point and ask him to talk about kind of these the first days of serving on a school board in public office and what it's like to be the new kid on the block as well. So thanks so much, everyone, for being here with us today, and I look forward to a robust conversation. I'm Jim Wirtz. I'm the chairman of the Erie County Democratic Party, and certainly it is part of our mission to help recruit and retain great candidates for elected office, and oftentimes that can be a challenge to know who's out there, who's interested, and a lot of times folks aren't actually sure, even if they are interested in running, what office they should be running for, and where they might find themselves down the road. Historically, school board is a great starting point. You get to learn some of the bureaucracy of running for office, some of the bureaucracy of holding public office, and certainly I think it maybe even more so than some of the higher profile offices. You kind of get thrown right in sometimes the criticisms of teachers, administrators, parents, families, students, the whole gamut, and so you have to develop a bit of a thick skin and a love for all of this work as well. So my appreciation to those of you here who do serve on school boards. I know it is sometimes a thankless task, but we are grateful for all of the work that you each put in. So I'm going to ask our guests, Darcy and Darlene, if you would please introduce yourselves to the group and tell us a little bit about how you came to join the school board, how you came to decide that running for school board was right for you. And Doris, we'll begin with you.
Well, I was a teacher and then an administrator for Corry School District, and I thought that would be enough of a reason to still give back once I retired, to give back to the community by being on the school board. And there were people that thought, well, you don't want to get involved with things that might involve your friends. I mean, we have contracts that we work on, and I still had friends in the district, and there are sometimes personnel issues that you have to deal with. And I didn't think that would be a problem. And so that's how I got interested. And then, so I retired on December 1st of that year. And then on December 3rd, I was sworn into the school board. So the first meeting after the November election that year. And the personnel issues have not been a problem with me at all. And I had no other interest in, I mean, I had grandchildren in the school district at that time. So that's a big interest, and you do have a vision. So my thinking was, if you have a vision for doing something like that to give back to the community, and that's where your talent lies, then that's the perfect opportunity. So that's how I got interested.
Thanks. Darlene, before we let you loose here, I just want to say, if anyone has questions along the way, please feel free to pop them into the chat. And we will have a time for open Q&A later, but as it pertains to anything that's being said along the way, we'll try to integrate those comments from the chat thread as well. Darlene.
Thanks, Jim. First of all, thanks everyone that's here. It's great to see you, and it's great to know that there are people that are willing to serve our students in this very, very honorable position. And I do say that when I think of elected officials, I can't think of one that's more important, because you are educating the society. And we know now from everything that's been happening over the past week, month, that is a very important job indeed. So Doris and I have a very similar background, and that's an honor to be here with Doris, because she doesn't realize it, but she was actually one of my first mentors, because I was also assigned as a liaison to the IU5 board. So I had the opportunity to work with Doris, and so it's nice just to be together again. I am a retired school teacher from the Erie School District, and there were several times along the way that decisions that the school board made did affect me personally, and I saw how it was affecting the community. I was in a leadership role as a teacher. I was part of the Erie Education Association Executive Board as an elementary director. So I was also the liaison to the Personnel Committee. So I started to see how our funding problems and decisions that were had been made by past boards was affecting not only myself as a professional, but my community and the students. I had to live through furloughing 290 teachers. And I worked extremely hard on that mission of making sure that all 290 of those teachers who had been furloughed when we closed 3 elementary schools were brought back if they wanted to be brought back. And so I just started to become really passionate about that process. The other thing that happened was that in 2015, I was going to take a sabbatical, and I'm a really conscientious person. So I was signed up to take a sabbatical, and within, oh my gosh, not even a month of signing up to take a sabbatical, we received a letter from Jay Badams saying that we don't know if we can make our October payroll. And that was pretty devastating for me. And at that point, I thought, how can I do this? How can I take a sabbatical? How can I take extra money from the district? I can afford to retire. I think the writing's on the wall for me. It's time to retire. And when I have the first opportunity, I'm going to run for school board. And I also had several colleagues who remembered me complaining sometimes about the decisions that were made. And so once I did retire, they reminded me that I had at times said, that's it, I'm running for school board when I retire. So here I am.
Well, thank you.
One more thing.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I always did tell my students, I will always be here for you. If you need me, and you know where to find me, and I'm in the phone book. And then when all of this happened, that was another group of people that I felt responsibility to, because I hadn't planned on retiring. I had planned on actually teaching until this year. So I just wanted to be a voice for them as well, because I knew that if we were having trouble making payroll, there were going to be some real tough decisions that were going to be made that were going to impact our students.
I'm gonna bring Tyler in as well, because he is the one, I think, that is, you and Doris are both are former teachers and have worked in the school. And so Tyler, I think you come at this from a different perspective. What was your motivation to join the Erie School District?
So I am a trained therapist, and I work with youth who have often lost their voice, kids who get labeled as the trouble youth, the high risk youth. I hate both those terms, but kids who've endured quite a bit of trauma, and are often placed outside of their home school. So they're ending up in residential, they're ending up in foster care, they're ending up in the juvenile justice system. And those are the kids who always had my heart. My parents were foster parents, became foster parents when I was 16 years old. And so I saw and learned the system from that side, like what was happening behind the scenes. And I saw how these kids get lost. They just get lost and they become a statistic. And so for me, it was a passion about representation, making sure that when we approached equity, that it was equity that was inclusive of neurodivergent, of differing abilities, of different backgrounds and identities, that it wasn't just a monolithic approach to representation. And so that is really what compelled me, is I wanted to make sure those who have been oppressed, marginalized, those terms get thrown around a lot, but they're true. They're very true. And I wanted to make sure that they had somebody at the table who was going to always bring that up. And I will tell you, I do annoy my colleagues quite a bit, because there have been many times where I push, like that's right where I push. And they're like, oh, here we go again, like these talks. But Ms. Feeney and I are very aligned on a lot of these topics. And we've been so vocal, other board members have felt empowered, I think, to become more vocal. And other board members or people have been interested in running because they're seeing like, this is what we need to be talking about. But that's what drew me in was these kids. Like these kids have my heart. They will always have my heart.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. I'd like to ask Doris and Darlene, once you left your teaching and administrative positions, once you've left your teaching and administrative positions, you made the decision to run for school board. Talk a little bit about making that transition from school employee, district employee to becoming a candidate for school board, and how you got your name outside of the school in order to get elected. Doris?
Well, I'm from a smaller town than Erie. I'm from Corry. And so my name was already out there because we had lived there like 30 years at that point. So my name was out there, but I had no idea where to even start. So I knew that you had to pick up petitions at the courthouse. And from that, I got a list. So I ran on both tickets. So that meant I had to have 100 signatures on 2 different petitions, one for the Democratic Party and one for the Republican Party. And I knew a lot of people, but I realized I didn't know, I was having to ask total strangers. So I just, for their signatures, because you wanted to have as many as that would protect you, later. So I got to know a lot of other people, and I would go ask if I could be at some fundraiser or something like that. And so that's how I got my name out there, set up a table at different places and introduce myself. And I had to have someone from both parties with me. I was the Democrat, and I had to have a Republican with me to do both of those signatures. But that's what I did. And I also went door to door at times, because I was getting lots of signatures, but I wanted to make sure that I didn't leave people out, because I knew that there were going to be a lot of people who ran for school board, or at least it was going to be a contest. And it wasn't automatic. So I wanted to make sure that if they were part of signing my petition, that they might remember to vote for me too. So I got to know a lot of people in addition to the ones I already did. I don't know is that the kind of answer that you wanted on how we started?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think Darlene, correct me if I'm wrong, but you also cross-filed
Mhm.
to run.
I did.
And here in the city of Erie, many of these races tend to get sorted out in the primary as opposed to the general election, where we don't often have a lot of Republicans on the ballot, or exclusive Republicans on the ballot. So if you could share with us your experience of getting into that flow as a candidate.
Sure. So, my best friend from grade school is actually Kathy Dahlkemper. So, she's probably part of the reason that I ran for school board, because she kept bugging me to run for other uh, positions. And I said, that's not where my heart is. That's not where my heart is. So, I did have some guidance and help from other elected officials, some support along the way. I've known Cindy for quite some time. My daughter is an environmental advocate, and so I've met Cindy at different events years ago, and she certainly was helpful in giving me some guidance too on this process. So as far as name recognition goes, being a high school basketball coach, I was on TV and I was in the paper at times, so I did have some of that name recognition that I think really does help. The other thing I do believe is because when you teach for that many years, so I have 25-year career, you meet a lot of people in the community. And if you are good at your craft and you care about your students and they reciprocate that bond and that feeling, that's helpful as well to voters. So I do think that definitely was an advantage to me. I also think I probably was considered the teacher's candidate. And you did ask that question, and I had to make it very clear to the teachers in the beginning that I'm not your council member or board member. Like, I am here to represent the city. I'm here to represent the students and you, because I know if you're successful, the students are going to be successful. But that's not. I'm not going to vote for everything that you want just because you want it. I'm not just your robocall school board director. So that is a challenge, I think, as a teacher. Also, I had the administration looking upon me as, she's going to be pushing all teacher initiatives. And so I had to gain their trust as well. And slowly over time, I think they realized that I really am there for all the right reasons and not just because I wanted to push the teachers' agendas. So starting out, I don't know if you want me to get into, I did cross file. A negative thing that impacted both Tyler and I is that I was out of town when they did the training at Blasco for candidates, and I got there at the very end, and so I missed most of it. And one of the things I missed was that you had to file your financial form with both the governing body that you're running for and at the courthouse. So when I went to put in all my paperwork, including my petitions, I asked, is there anything else I need to do with this finance form? Because I know some candidates have to, file this in Harrisburg, because Kathy had told me that. And they told me no, no, you're good. You don't have to do anymore. So because I did not file that form, so please everyone know that you have to file that form with the governing body that you are running for. So you must file that form at the school district office of whichever school district you're running for. Because we did not file that form, or we filed it late, our petitions were challenged. And so I had cross-filed, thankfully. If I had not cross-filed, I would have been completely thrown off. But because I cross-filed, now I'm running as a Republican. And I had to do a write-in campaign as a Democrat. And a lot of people asked me, well, why are you doing this? And I said, because people need to know I'm a Democrat. And still to this day, this cute story, I'm golfing in a golf tournament with Kathy Dahlkemper. The Benedictines, the Emmaus was running this event, this fundraising event. And one of the nuns said, why is Kathy golfing with Darlene Feeney? She's a Republican. so yeah, that was one of our struggles that we had. I don't know. So it's cutthroat sometimes. You have to be prepared. And so I did knock on a lot of doors. I had to get that write-in campaign. And I'm very proud of it, very proud that I did it. And I don't regret it. It gave me more, I think it gave us more name recognition, and I had to meet a lot more people too.
And Tyler, you were in the same boat, and you had to run as a write-in candidate as well. Talk a little bit about that experience and how that
I actually did not cross-file. So when I was knocked off the Democratic ticket, I was knocked out of the race. Or so they thought. I think that that's what the goal, and many people at that point, I think there was like 13 of us who were knocked off. It was a large number of us who had filed and were knocked off the Democratic ticket. And that just angered me. It angered me quite a bit because it immediately took everything down to what appeared to be a Republican race for just school board members. And I remember sitting like, well, if that's all it was going to take was one person to challenge me and I was willing to just like kind of walk away, then I actually didn't deserve the seat anyway. And so I was hellbent and did what Dar said. I knocked doors and I ran a write-in campaign. We started teaching people how to do the write-in campaign. We were doing printouts with the directions, like take our name, and this is how you do it. This is exactly how you fill it out, because it's intimidating to some people. They're used to just going in and like clicking, a lot of people just want to do that. And they hit the party that comes up, and that's where it is. That's where the vote is. A lot of people didn't even know how to write in somebody's name. And so it became a great way for us to engage civically on a whole new level. And as a very out transgender person, this made me very nervous, because that's when the news also started picking up on that. And I became the trans candidate running a write-in campaign. And I didn't want to be elected just because I was trans. And so I would push back on that and talk about the other reasons why I ran. And it wasn't just, I am a candidate who just so happens to be trans. I'm not a candidate who is transgender. And so I think that was part of it, but it created so many beautiful opportunities for dialogue and a lot of education. So it moved from being like this one thing into something much, much bigger. There were scary moments. I would be naive and lying if I didn't say that was true. There are, especially when you're knocking on random strangers' doors and they know more than you know about them. They know a lot about you. And so sometimes you're walking into your own trap, but it also created a lot of opportunity and a lot of healing, I think, for the community to really get engaged on a different level, and brought attention to the school board because this is often a race that people forget about. And so I think with what Dar and I doing that writing campaign, we started getting people paying attention to things that were being brushed aside a little bit.
Thank you. Now, I guess we'll move on to the big topic, and the reason why a lot of our guests are here today, and that's to figure out what the heck a school board member does. I think a lot of folks get into some of these races with a thought in their head about what that might look like and what the day-to-day might be. But I think that there's a lot we don't know about your positions, and I think that they might be a little bit there. While there are a lot of similarities, I'm sure there might be some differences between some of the rural districts and the more urban districts. So, Doris, if we can start with you, tell us a little bit about what it is that school board members and perhaps school board president is getting involved with. What are the expectations and the realities of this position?
Well, first of all, and I think this is appropriate at this time, we take an oath that we swear or affirm that we are going to defend the Constitution of the United States. So that is support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States, as well as the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So that is the first and foremost thing that we have to always remember, that we are part of the governmental system and that we have to live to the Constitution that our forefathers wrote for us and for mothers at this point. So anyway, so that's the first thing. And I think that we're responsible for hiring and firing people. That doesn't mean that we go in and say we can take anyone in that wants to be hired, but we have to vote on those things. And the same with firing someone or letting someone go or dismissing them or laying them off, whatever. We have to vote on that sort of thing. And we have to balance the budget. And so we can raise taxes or not. And the budget process is all year long. And then we get heavily involved starting in January again for the next year, or for the coming school year. So they're basically, and we're there to make all kinds of decisions. We want to support the superintendent all that you can, unless you find, we're not yes men, but we're absolutely, once the decision has been made, it's been made, even if we don't all vote for it. Once the decision has been made, it is a board decision to go forth with it. So we stick by all of that. And so, and then in Pennsylvania, you are required to have 6 board meetings a year. In lieu of that, most school districts have 24, like twice a month, plus any other meetings that you have. And as president, I go in probably once or twice a week during this time of the pandemic, especially or I'm in touch with everyone at least twice a week. But in between that, I do go in with the vice president of our board, and we set the agenda. And then the agenda is sent out to everyone, and any of the backup work that goes with a particular item, that is sent also to every board member. And then we happen to meet on Monday nights. And then from there, we have different people who are in charge of different things. We have people who on the board that are we have a treasurer, and he's in charge of the finance committee also. And we have a policy. We meet as a whole, our committee as a whole. So before every school board meeting, there's a meeting of anything that we have to discuss, such as policy or the budget or something like that, right before the meeting. So we normally meet an hour before each school board meeting. And then there's one person is assigned to be on the IU board. The IU has 17 school districts that it deals with. So each of the 17 school districts put one person on their board. So there are different things that every board member has to do, but mainly it's homework. When you get your packet, you have to look through, you're supposed to look through the packet. And if you have any questions, it's probably much nicer to call ahead of time to your superintendent or the finance director or whatever and say, well, I have a question about this. That way you're not waiting until the school board meeting, which takes up a lot of time, but it also catches people off guard, and they don't always have, like someone might ask, well, what is this bill for? And they might have 350 bills that are being paid. And if they know ahead of time, they will have the answer for you. But if they don't, then it looks like nobody knows what they're doing. So it's very good if you work as a group, and you don't always vote the same, but you do get along. And we have executive meetings sometimes before or after a school board meeting to discuss personnel items or any kind of consultation with our attorney, anything like that we cannot do in the public, in the sunshine, so to speak. And then decisions and votes all come back there. And the one thing that we have to remember is that, well, it's a lot of things you have to remember, but one is, if there's an executive meeting, that information is totally, absolutely confidential. And you don't go outside and talk about it with anyone. And the other thing is that when you have when you make a decision, it is a board decision, and you're doing it you're now a group. None of us have any power outside of the board room. Only during the board meeting do we have any power at all. and that is our vote, our one and only vote. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
That's a great start, Doris. That's a wonderful
okay,
start.
good.
Darlene, what can you add to Doris's description, and also I think maybe some of the if you want to take your own path here, what are some of the challenges that you've faced along the way?
Great. So great minds think alike. And Doris, you hit all my bullets. And the very first thing that I wanted to mention was the first thing that you mentioned. And it's overwhelming, actually, when you swear that oath to the Constitution of the United States, in that you will defend it, and also to the Constitution of Pennsylvania. And it's important that you realize that before you start and before you run. The only other thing that I wanted to add to what Doris said, we do hire and fire all employees. We need that approval where we approve that. But the most important thing, I guess, would be that we hire and evaluate the superintendent and the assistant superintendent. The other thing that I try very hard to do, and I am sure Doris does as well, is to keep current on what's happening on state's proposed legislation. So if you do run and you are elected, I would suggest that you sign up for legislative alerts. So, and I honestly can't tell you how I did that. I think I went to pa.gov. But I could go back and review it, or Doris might remember. But so I, in particular, signed up for legislative alerts for all education legislation. And then I also signed up for transportation, because it really is important to running. And I guess while I'm talking about transportation, it might be important for all of you to know that that budget has been flat for quite some time, but the expenses have increased, and it's becoming a crisis, because we're really having a hard time hiring and retaining bus drivers. So that will be an issue that you might come up with. Setting goals too, which is something I don't think our board's been as good about as we should, but the board should set some goals for themselves, the things that they want to accomplish. So you have some direction moving forward. I guess the other thing I want to say is that you're not involved in day-to-day operations. And I think Doris alluded to that, and you should try very hard not to get involved into day-to-day operations. That's not your job. You've hired the superintendent, super assistant, and you, in doing that, are telling them that you have full confidence in them, and you need to let them do their jobs. Challenges, is that what you said, Jim? Some challenges.
Yeah.
You have to be a good listener, and you have to remember that you are just one vote. And if you really do want people to agree with something that you're trying to put forward, you have to be a good listener when they're trying to put something forward. And as Doris said, you're a team. And as I always told my ball players, there's no I in team. So sometimes that can be a challenge. If you realize that the board is not agreeing with something that you're trying to push forward, you need to choose your words carefully, because you have to remember that you are a team and you're working together, and you're not always going to agree. So when you do make your arguments, you need to make them professionally. You need to make them respectfully. I think that's very important. You're willing to compromise. You're not always going to get everything you want. And I'll give you a perfect example. I wanted the logo in the middle of the field at Veterans Memorial Stadium for the students. And it became clear to me that I was not going to win that. So I had to come up with a compromise. And Tyler can tell you, it was the last minute. We were literally walking out of our committee of the whole, and I was beside myself that there was going to be no logo on that field for our student athletes and our students. So as we're walking out, I just started picking them one by one by one by one. And I didn't get to everybody before we got up on that stage. So we're up on that stage, and I am still one by one by one by one, trying to, will you, if we do this, will you vote for it? If we do this, will you vote for it? And sometimes that's a challenge that you've got to really think on your feet and realize, okay, I'm not winning this, but what's the compromise? And there's always can be a good compromise. So that's something else I think that you can present your opinions and belief, but do them clearly and succinctly. Don't go on and on and on. You'll lose them. It helps if you do have some debating skills and some conversational skills. And again, it really helps if you have some people skills. And finally, I would say, I think mentoring is incredibly important. And a challenge for me was that Tyler and I really only had one mentor, I think. So we bonded right off the bat because, you know, we were looking for guidance. We're sitting at the meeting one day and I said, hey, did you know if you click up here on meetings that there's a draft, and that everything we've been looking for, you know, these 2 months is actually in the draft, and we're waiting for the meeting to be published, you know, to go live to the community. And that's when we would first see it. So just little things like that. Or, hey, did you know that we can go over here in board docs and look at all the policies? Because we thought we had to go in and look at the binders and binders and binders and binders and the solicitors. So that's another good thing is mentoring each other along the way.
All right, thank you.
Can't think of any other challenges.
No, that's great. Your story sounds like politics at its finest. I guess one that would lead to the next question. And Tyler, feel free to jump in if you'd like. But in joining a school board, did you imagine that the range of issues you might deal with would go from hiring and evaluating a superintendent to arguing and compromising over what was going to be on an athletic field?
Never in my wildest dreams. I really didn't. You know, and you become shocked too at people's opinions because you have your own and you think everyone thinks like you. And then you realize that they don't. And then it's like, okay, well, now I've got to come up with the arguments. I was fortunate that I was on the debate team in high school. So that has helped me a great deal with. Sometimes when I prepare for a meeting, I will prepare what I consider affirmative and negative, or positive and, you know, for and against arguments, so that I will be prepared and be able to anticipate what other board members might bring up as issues for or against something.
And I think you also raised a really important point about mentorship on these boards for new and potential candidates. It can be, I think, difficult on some boards or in some offices to find a mentor, somebody to help shepherd you in and through until you get your own bearings. But it's important to try to identify that person and then also down the road to become that person as well and become that mentor
Right.
for others.
Right.
Big part of the job. Both Darlene and Tyler spoke about the challenges of getting on the ballot, or the challenges they faced anyway, and the ins and outs. So I'm going to turn it over to Chelsea Alcorn, who's going to walk us through getting on the ballot. Again, if you have any questions along the way, feel free to pipe them into the chat, or we'll also have an open Q&A here after Chelsea's presentation. And to our school board members who are on the call, if you have anything to add along the way related to your own experience, please feel free to jump in. Chelsea?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, just to echo him, if any of you have anything additional that you want to talk about in terms of getting on the ballot as I'm going through this, please, by all means, interject. I have to share my screen because I made a little PowerPoint. And my name is Chelsea Alcorn. I was actually the field director for the county party this past cycle, but I am, as the chairman said, a campaign veteran, gone through this many times. I have also filed my own petitions because I ran for state committee in 2018. And I know that municipal versus state versus county, all of those things are a little bit different. So I'm just going to talk about what you need to get on the ballot for a school board. So give me just a moment. Help me out here, Jim.
1 second.
All right, I'm good.
You got it?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Can we all see my screen? You can all see it?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. All right. So getting on the ballot, both sometimes the most and sometimes the least interesting part of what can be a difficult or an easy campaign. This is the beginning of everything. I just wanted to note, since Vice Chairwoman Purvis also wanted me to talk about the nuts and bolts of campaigning here, I wanted to note what is up this year in Erie County, at least. And most of the school boards have 4 seats up, except for Wattsburg and Harbor Creek school districts. They have 5 seats up. So what's on your screen is what we're looking for, or what we're looking at in terms of this year. And these seats are up every 2 years. These terms are for 4 years, but every 2 years, the other seats will be up for each of these school districts. And all of these school districts are at-large seats, except for General McLean. They have 2 at-large school board members, and then their school district is broken up into regions. So
Okay,
nomination.
you left Corry off that list. But we have 4 up too.
You have 4 up too. Sorry about that. So nomination petitions. I'm just going to go forward to the next slide so you can see what a petition looks like if you've never seen one before. These are just photos I pulled from the internet. I wish I had a PDF that I could just put on here and show you, but the slide, the photo on the right, or the photo on the left, is what the petition looks like, where you fill out your name, what it is you're running for, what your occupation is, your address, and then underneath that you have signatures of electors, which is the photo on the right. And the electors, I will go back to the other screen. The electors are people who form the electorate. Basically, the people who can vote for you in the primary are the people who can sign your petition. So what are nomination petitions? They provide the ballot access to get you on the ballot to be nominated for your party's nomination. And it's just a signifier that members of the electorate want you on their primary ballot. You can sign as many petitions as there are seats open. So if you're signing a petition for Erie City School Board, there's 4 seats up. So you as an elector can sign up to 4 petitions for people running for Erie City School Board. But if for president, you can only sign 1 because you can only vote for 1 president, stuff like that. So what you need from a qualified elector are their signature, their printed name, their address, and the date. And the dates have to be between in the circulating period for petitions. So this year, the circulating period is February 16th to March 9th. That's 3 weeks, Tuesday to Tuesday. And the date that the electors are signing has to be between February 16th and March 9th. And March 9th is the day that the petitions will need to be into the County Board of Elections and your local municipality. For every school board, you only need 10 signatures. I think, Doris, you were talking about needing to get 100.
That was before.
Okay.
The last time I ran, you had to get 100 on each ticket.
Yeah, and I had asked the chairman about this earlier, and he also said 100, but I wanted to verify, so I talked to the elections office, who sent me a whole list of how many signatures each office needs, and every school board in the county only needs 10 signatures. But as anybody who has run for office before can tell you, you definitely should get more than the amount of signatures that you need to qualify for the ballot, for any number of reasons, mostly because you may get challenged, and that getting challenged could potentially knock you off the ballot. The general unspoken rule is that you need at least 3 times more signatures than are required for your nomination. So if you're running for school board, you should definitely try to get at least 30 signatures from qualified electors. You can cross-file for all school board seats. You can also cross-file for county judicial seats, but we're not talking about that right now. To cross-file, you need to circulate a Democratic petition and a Republican petition. And you can, if you're a Democrat, you can circulate your Democratic petition, but if you are trying to file for the Republican primary ballot as well, a Republican will need to carry your petition to circulate. The packet that comes with your petitions and everything that you need to be a candidate, basically, you can pick up as soon as February 9th at the courthouse. But again, I talked to the elections office and they're closed. The office is open, but the courthouse is closed to the public until January 31st. So she is not sure if it will be open in time for candidates to be able to pick up their petitions. So she said that she'd get back to me. But in any normal non-COVID times, you would be able to go pick up your petition packet at the voter registration office in the courthouse starting on February 9th. But you cannot circulate until February 16th. Cross-filing is allowed, like I said, and that would just mean getting on the Democratic primary ballot and the Republican primary ballot. And if your school district straddles county lines, Doris, like Corry straddles the Crawford County line, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You have to get
how many. Corry has 3 counties that we deal with. So was that the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't all in Erie County. I couldn't remember. And you have to get, if you're getting signatures outside Erie County, you have to file with the appropriate other counties voter registration.
No, you file always in Erie for us. Yes.
But if people who live outside the county but are in your school district are signing, they have to have a separate county.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. A separate petition. Yes.
Separate petition for a separate county.
Right.
If we were talking like a statewide seat, everybody, every different county has a different petition and it just says the county's name. There's nothing actually different about it. It just has the electors from that county.
Right.
So this is what the petitions look like now that I went through that. So the top of them has all of your information as a candidate, and then your qualified electors are signing something that looked like this. This actually, I pulled off the internet, like I said, and is an example of what seems like some of the signatures may be forged, and that's the type of thing that you can get challenged for when you're trying to get on the ballot. So that's why you always want to shoot for more signatures than you actually need. And signatures can be they can be challenged for any number of things. Forgery, as in somebody just going through and signing for you, even if it's not that actual person. Maybe that person doesn't actually live where they say, or live and vote where they say that they're living and voting on the nomination petition. Maybe they are not registered with the party that they're supposed to be registered with. Any number of things. And when you actually go to file, a lot of offices there's a filing fee to file to run for office, but there is not one for any of the school boards. You will need your petitions, you will need a candidate's affidavit and a statement of financial interest that you can get at the courthouse when you pick up your petition packet. And then you'll need a waiver of expense report if you're not opening a committee. So you would open a committee if you were accepting contributions or making expenditures in excess of $250. And if you don't plan to do that, you can sign your waiver of expense report. But if you end up taking the money or spending more than that money, then you will need to file financial disclosure forms. And all of those are available as well at the county voter registration office, which I included the information for here. It's just downtown. And then I just included some extra links here of important election dates. The county has a running for office information link. It's kind of a lot of what I just told you, but it's also helpful to have it in one spot. And then list of elected officials, because this getting on the ballot process is you can use for any office that you would run for. If you would want to run for city council, for mayor, county executive, Congress, even all of these petition rules apply, and all of the registration rules apply. And then just my email, chairman's email, and the voter registration office information. So I'm happy to take any questions. I saw that the chat had some things that I may not have covered.
Thank you, Chelsea. I also added the contact information for the elections office into the chat thread. So feel free to lift it from there if that's easier. There was a question in there about electronic petitions. At this point, even with COVID, there are no electronic petition submissions. So you'll need to figure out a way to interact with folks to get the signatures you need on your petitions. The county will be trying to help facilitate this the best that we can. Normally, in a normal year, a non-COVID year, we would have a petition signing party where a candidate needing only 10 signatures would probably be able to get what they need in that room that night. But because of COVID, we're not going to be having a large petition signing event, but we are going to try to do multiple events, whether that be a drive-through event where people can pull up and sign the petitions that are available. We'll do that a couple of times. Chelsea and I have been trying to reach out to the mall to see if we could get a booth set up there where people would be able to come and get petitions signed. And of course, there's always going back to going door to door, getting out on the street. And so what we found in throughout 2020 was that many voters didn't mind you coming to the door. You just want to be thoughtful about the way that you interact with them when you're there, given their potential concerns.
Something to also consider from a candidate standpoint is petitions actually are your first line of introducing yourself to people. So when you are knocking on doors, people might not even realize A, what you're doing, or B, that this particular seat is up. They don't know who you are, but they might remember that you stopped by their house and ask permission to be on their primary ballot, basically is what you're doing. And even seasoned veterans of campaigns, not campaigns, but of politics who are really engaged, not all of them necessarily know what the petition process even is. It can be kind of convoluted, and basically what you're doing when you ask people for their signatures, just saying, I'm asking you if it's okay that I'm on your primary ballot. So it's not that daunting of a task because you're not even asking for their vote yet. And to the electronic petition point, unfortunately, that's not an option. And I think everybody right now is trying to figure out how we're going to get through this. And if any of the, there will be any waivers for any of this from the state. I know when I talked to the person at the elections office, there were still a lot of things in limbo in terms of how to return petitions, any leeway, how to pick them up, stuff like that.
And Tyler, I'll let you go one second here, but one additional note to keep in mind is that we now have the mail ballot as an option for voters. And so the first date that mail ballots would be able to be distributed to voters is just 20 days after the petition window signs. So March 29th would be that first day. One that creates a pretty long primary timeline for you to be going out and interacting with voters or engaging with voters and trying to get to those folks who have their mail ballots early. But it's just an important check mark to keep in mind as you're moving forward. It's not going to be just about who's showing up at the ballot on election day. You'll have to think about how you want to interact with those voters who are going to be voting early by mail as well. Tyler?
The other thing I think it's important to note is when you are out collecting signatures for your petition is to know the number of seats that are open for those spots. So you can collect and people can sign up to however many seats are open. So if someone's like, oh, I already signed a school board petition, you can say, well, I mean, you can sign up to 4 because this election cycle, there'll be 4 in Erie. So I think that those are things that are important to know as you're going out. And it's another way to keep engaging because sometimes people will just like, nope, I already signed. But oftentimes when there's spots like this, you can sign more than one petition. So I think that's always a good tidbit of information for people to know.
For sure. Thank you. And also important to note, thank you, Darlene, for bringing it up. Previously, your petitions had to be notarized. So you would go out and you would get all of the signatures that you needed, and then you'd need to find a notary too. And the party would try to provide that for candidates that were coming back through. But now with among the many changes in the Act 77 legislation, which gave us the mail ballot, the notarized petitions were taken off the table. So all you need to do is circulate the petition, and then you will sign it at the end, or or if you have someone circulating petitions for you, they'll sign the affidavit on there, but they no longer need to be notarized. So that is a big headache that has been removed, or a burden that's been removed from potential candidates.
Going along with that, Jim, our financial disclosures forms used to have to be notarized as well. And oftentimes we would just take them down to the county election office and they would notarize them for us. But my understanding is we can do that electronically now, that we can actually sign up. And I apologize because I do not have the email address, but perhaps you do, where you can actually apply to sign up to do that electronically now.
I think you do that through the state site, even though it's
Right.
a county function. And so when you're going in and formalizing your candidacy, that should be an option that's available to you.
Mhm.
Other questions from our guests here?
I did have one follow-up that I just wanted to clarify on, and I believe that this was that you did, but just for clarity's sake, I guess. So you can, as a registered Democrat, circulate and collect Republican signatures and vice versa, correct?
No, you still need, if you're trying to cross file on the ballot, you will still need a Republican to circulate the Republican petition for you.
Okay.
Okay. As a Democrat and a Democratic candidate, you can circulate that petition, but you will still need Republican electors to circulate Republican petitions and collect Republican signatures for you.
I guess the nice thing though is you don't have to have that individual go and have it notarized, because it used to be that your Republican petition you'd have to have a Republican go and have that notarized. So that's a nice piece of that new legislation.
Certainly is helpful. Anything we can do to make it easier for people to get on the ballot, I think, is a positive step, especially for these municipal offices.
Jim, do you want us to go through what it cost us to run a
Oh, yeah,
campaign?
please.
Or
Please.
okay, Doris, do you want to go first, or
I'm sorry, what was the
how much it cost us to run our campaigns?
well, as I said, I'm in a small city, so to date, it's only cost gasoline money for me, and so no other money for me.
Okay.
So I'll let someone else deal with that.
So I did decide to form a committee, and so I have the committee to elect Darlene Feeney. I started out with an individual personal donation of $500 to my campaign, thinking that when I started to fundraise that I would be able to get some of that back potentially. I filled out some questionnaires. One was PSEA PACE, that's a PAC. And I received $500 from the PSEA PACE PAC. I received $250 from individuals. I did not do a fundraiser as I had planned. But when I had my announcement, the restaurant that hosted my announcement gave me a 100 in-kind contribution for food. So it was, although I don't think you guys are going to be able to do any of that kind of stuff now. So my total expenses that I will be submitting my form. I'm not running again. So anybody that's interested in running for Erie School Board, there will be at least one open seat of an incumbent that's not running again for re-election. Signs, Erie loves signs. So I spent about $420 on signs. I made the mistake, I think, of getting a PO box, but I thought I needed one. So that PO box cost me about $120. You can just have everything come to your house. It's not necessary to get a PO box, but I was advised to do it, so I did. My announcement event, back to that, it only cost me about $20. So that was easy. Supplies, I probably spent about $600 on supplies. And that would be stamps for postage, ink, for printing, paper, cardstocks. I bought plastic door hangers that I could put inserts into. And my committee was, my husband has been acting as my treasurer. And if you do decide to have a committee, you do want a treasurer, and you do want somebody that is good with that type of paperwork, or someone, or for them to have a mentor from another candidate that has done this paperwork before and really understands what you need to do. Because now, right now that I'm not running again, I need to do a final finance report, and I need to show a balance of 0. So basically, I am asking my committee to forgive what would be left in my account, which basically was my own money. But you have to know how to do all that and do it correctly. My campaign committee was teachers, so we handmade everything. So we handmade our flyers, we handmade our door hangers, we just all did our crafty teacher thing. So otherwise it probably would have cost more than that. And again, I think I had to probably spend more money because of the write-in campaign, because I really needed to get my name out there. So that's what I did.
And Darlene mentioned that she had received the endorsement and some funds from the PSEA PAC. For those of you that when you become a candidate, you'll get lots of solicitations from different organizations that may be endorsing in a race, and the teachers union often does endorse in the school board races. If you are going to plan on taking money from any of the endorsing groups or any other organization, you will need to have that PAC, have that committee set up. So there have been candidates before who did not set that up, and then get to that point where a PAC would like to give them a donation, and then it becomes tricky if you don't have that set up. So something to think about going forward. If you need that additional money, or if you're going to be soliciting donations at all, you should get someone to help facilitate that PAC financing for you. And I think the key characteristics are someone who is fairly well organized and can pay attention to important dates on the calendar. For the most part, if you can balance your own checkbook, they'd be an okay treasurer for a PAC at this level. But you want to keep those important reporting dates in mind. And I included a link, or I'm putting a link in the chat right now for a campaign finance FAQ from the county.
I just wanted to add in real quick too, is I think now that we're in a COVID election season, that you have to be a little bit more creative. And one of the things that I had done with mine was I didn't have a lot of money, and I didn't know how to raise a lot of money, and I didn't want to invest a lot of money. So I used the little that I had wisely, and I did like a t-shirt campaign and a hashtag campaign. Now that social media is like a big thing that a lot of people are on, but know your audience, know where your voters go. The mean age is more Facebook. So you're going to get a lot of traction on like Insta and other places, but the people who are going to show up to vote tend to be on different platforms. Know the platforms that your voters are on, know your district. And there are still some who are not on it. So I think that is important things to know, is when you're going to spend your money, know where you're going to spend it and who you're going to reach, because you want to get the biggest bang for your buck. And that kind of stuff is really, really important, is who's going to get your message and who's going to advocate for you.
That's a good point, Tyler. I did also have a Facebook page for my campaign, but I am no longer on Facebook. So.
And as an elected official, the social media becomes like the bane of your existence, just so like it does.
That's a whole other 4-hour session, right? Yeah. Any other questions from our guests? Any questions from the guests? Again, if you do have any questions down the road, feel free to contact the Erie County Democratic Party and reach out to me directly. If I can't answer your question, I'll direct you to the folks that can, and we will make sure that to the best of our ability, we help facilitate you getting to getting on the ballot and getting as far in this process as you can. So I want to thank you all for attending today. I'd like to thank Doris, Darlene, and even though Tyler didn't know he was going to be a part of the panel, throwing him in there, and Chelsea, thank you for your contribution, and Sarah/Cindy Purvis, thank you for organizing this event for us today. It's important for our community to know not only that these races are up and open, but also how to engage them, because so much of what happens at these school boards and on our city councils and township boroughs, our borough councils and township councils, are really the things that impact our day-to-day lives. People talk all the time about the taxes going up or down, or the quality of their schools, and all of that happens right here, not at some other level. So thank you all for the work that you do and being willing to serve in these capacities. And thank you to all of our guests for considering joining that core of important public service. So thank you all so much for being here today. Any closing thoughts?
I just want to let everyone know, if you're interested in running for school board in the Erie City and you need any advice or mentoring or any help at all, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to help you.
Same, absolutely.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. Thank you.